All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're looking at a piece of ancient text, but not in the way you might think. We're going to treat it like a brilliant logic puzzle. We're going to see how ancient rabbis basically became detectives to prove that a 3,000-year-old recipe was perfectly, and I mean perfectly, preserved. So just imagine this for a second. You have this incredibly important sacred ritual that involves baking bread. The catch? The recipe uses measurements from the time of Moses, units that nobody's really used for centuries. How in the world can you be absolutely sure you're getting it right? That's the puzzle we're going to crack today. So the heart of our puzzle is a very specific ritual known as the thanks offering. And this wasn't just, baking for fun. This was a deeply meaningful act that had to be done with absolute precision. And the main ingredient, you could say, was a whole lot of bread. And when I say a lot, I mean it. We're talking about 40 loaves. Exactly. The recipe for this thanks offering demanded that precise number. No more, no less. So that really sets the stage, right? You can't just eyeball it when you're dealing with 40 individual loaves for a sacred offering. Now, here's where it starts to get really interesting. The total amount of flour they used was set in stone, but it was split exactly down the middle. One half went to making leavened bread, the regular fluffy kind that rises, and the other half, that was for unleavened bread, or matzah, the flat cracker-like bread. So how did they know how to do all this? Well, let's take a look at the recipe card itself. It comes from an ancient text called the Mishna, which is basically the first big collection of Jewish oral traditions. This is where all the instructions are laid out, and it's where our puzzle really starts to take shape. At first glance, the Mishnah makes it sound pretty simple. It says you need a total of 20/10 of an ephah of flour. Now, don't get hung up on the name. An ephah is just an old-school unit for measuring something dry, like flour. The recipe says 10/10 for the leavened bread and 10/10 for the unleavened. So far, so good, right? A perfect 50-50 split. But, of course, there's a twist. The 10 leavened loaves were all the same. Easy. But the 30 unleavened loaves were a whole different story. They were split into 3 different kinds. You had 10 regular loaves, 10 super thin wafers, and 10 that were actually poached in hot water first. This meant that the flour for the unleavened bread had to be divided perfectly by 3. The math had to be exact. And this is where we go from being bakers to being code-breaking mathematicians. Because the Mishnah lays out this whole recipe using these ancient kind of obscure units of measurement that sometimes even seem to contradict each other. This is way more than just baking. This is historical mathematics. So what's the first major complication? Well, there isn't just one standard unit. The text talks about 2 different versions of a measurement called a seah. You've got the original wilderness seah from way back in biblical times, and then a larger Jerusalem seah that was used much later. It's like having a recipe that calls for a cup, but doesn't tell you if it's a tiny teacup or a giant coffee mug. Big difference. Now, to make any sense of this maze, the Mishnah makes one central claim. This is the cornerstone for the entire recipe. It states that the main unit, the ephah, is equal to exactly 3 of those original, smaller wilderness seah. If this one fact is true, all the complicated math for the bread just works. And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? This is what drives the whole next section of the Talmud. The later rabbis, the ones commenting on the Mishnah, they didn't just take it on faith. They looked at that claim and asked, okay, but where's the proof? They weren't just going to trust the tradition passed down for hundreds of years. No way. They had to prove it, and they had to prove it from the ultimate source, the Bible itself. So to check if this ancient recipe was legit, the rabbis put on their detective hats. They started combing through the scriptures, looking for any hidden clue, any little breadcrumb that could connect these old measurements and prove, with cold, hard logic, that the recipe was accurate. And then they find their first big break. It comes from the prophet Ezekiel. The verse says that an ephah, that's our dry measure for flour, is the exact same size as something called a bat, which is a liquid measure. Now, this is a huge breakthrough. It's like finding a Rosetta Stone that connects 2 totally different systems of measurement. And this, of course, leads to the next logical question, which is exactly how these guys thought. Okay, awesome. An ephah is the same as a bat. Great. But that doesn't really help us unless we can figure out how big a bat is, right? You've just traded one mystery for another. In fact, their first try to figure out the size of a bat was a total bust. It just led to a circular argument, a complete dead end. And I actually love that this part of the story is included because it shows this wasn't easy. Their process was incredibly rigorous. If an argument wasn't logically airtight, they just tossed it out and went back to the drawing board. So they kept digging. And just a few verses later in Ezekiel, boom, they hit the jackpot. They find the absolute key that unlocks the entire puzzle. This verse explicitly says that 10 of our mystery bat units make up one, much larger, known quantity called a core. This was the missing link. Okay, now check out how all the pieces snap together. It is so brilliant. Let's walk through it. First, it was just common knowledge that one big core was equal to 30 seah. Everyone knew that. Second, the new clue they just found says that same core is also equal to 10 bat. You see it, right? If 30 seah equals 10 bat, then a little bit of simple division tells you that 1 bat must equal 3 seah. And since that first clue told us that an ephah is the same as a bat, well, the conclusion isn't escapable. 1 ephah equals 3 seah. The Mishna was right all along. The puzzle is solved. So let's zoom out for a second. What does all of this intricate detective work really tell us? I mean, why go through all this trouble just to prove the size of an ancient scoop of flour? Well, it reveals something really profound about the mindset behind this incredible text. For these ancient sages, tradition wasn't something you just blindly accepted. It had to be intellectually sound. It had to be provable. They built this amazing system where memory and faith were backed up by a foundation of verifiable logic that you could trace all the way back to the source. That recipe was preserved not just because someone remembered it, but because they could prove it from the ground up. And that leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? In our world today, a world that's just flooded with quick answers and misinformation, what problems could we solve if we applied this same patient, step-by-step, logical approach? If we demanded proof and traced ideas back to their source? Makes you think.